Hi, I'm Eric Parks and I'm an architect who specialises in sustainable design and construction, and for the past 10 years I've been a member of the Association for Environment Conscious Building, or AECB, and today I'm going to be interviewing Andy Simmonds, who also joined the AECB some time ago, back in 1991, through Simmonds Mills Architect Builders. Went on to become their chair and is now their chief executive officer. So a warm welcome to you, Andy. And I'm just going to start off by saying I've read your recent contribution in the Low Energy Buildings Bulletin, which kind of went over the scope and breadth of the work that the AECB has done. And I just wonder if you can go back to the beginning of the AECB and kind of tell us a bit about the aims, describe the membership, and the history of the AECB as well.
Hi, Eric. Yes, well, that was a long time ago now. The AECB was established over 20 years ago in 1989. It was set up as a not-for-profit networking organisation with an aim of promoting sustainable design, for example, by providing well-thought-through quality information and guidance, developing and promoting best practice throughout the construction sector, and of course lobbying for change on a range of sustainability issues.
Right. Well, given that the ACB is a networking organisation at its core, tell me a bit about the membership in terms of how many people are there in the ACB, who are they, and what are the activities really within the group?
Currently, the ACB has about 1,500 members and it's still growing. This network includes design professionals, tradespeople, academics, manufacturers, housing associations, local authorities, a broad eclectic mix. I've always thought of it as a microcosm of the building industry. All of these organisations and individuals share a common aim of promoting sustainable building. The network contains a wealth of detailed knowledge, including valuable first-hand experience of sustainable low-energy buildings and other broader sustainability issues related to the built environment. For example, members have been able to draw on resources such as the Carbon Literate Design and Construction Programme, Carbon Light, the very well-regarded annual conference, the Regional AECB Groups Network, which is a recent development and is growing rapidly, actually, and of course our very popular discussion forum. The network is, in effect, a large learning community. Members share their research findings, their experiences of experimenting with materials, building techniques through their experience gained on their built projects. The technical discussion forums are full of debate, robust exchanges of views, expert technical input, and it shows that the network, in some way, has some of the characteristics of a large virtual multidisciplinary R&D, procurement, design and construction team, a virtual team at the cutting edge of sustainable design and construction thinking. I think all of this can be nicely summed up by one of the ACB straplines you can see on the website: learning together, leading by example, and lobbying for change.
You mentioned several resources there which ACB members have access to. I suppose the discussion forum online, which I kind of visit quite regularly and is quite useful, and also I've been to several annual conferences. But one thing I'm kind of interested in knowing a bit more about is the something I use quite regularly, in fact, the Carbon Literate or Carbon Light design guidance. Could you kind of fill me in a bit more on that and kind of describe its background, really?
As you're aware, Eric, our major work activity has been focused on the development of the Carbon Light programme. The ACB developed its original building energy performance standards in response to consistent requests from its members for clear and practical guidance to help them inform their attempts to deliver low energy buildings. We reviewed energy standards, their methodologies and the associated programmes in the UK, Europe, USA and Canada, within the context of climate change, peak oil, energy security and other aspects of health and well-being related to, for example, indoor air quality and access to affordable and low-carbon warmth.
So how did this review of the UK, European and North American energy standards highlight what kind of needed to be done in the UK in terms of our approach to kind of low energy building?
Well, we concluded that the UK needed to be much more ambitious with its CO2 reduction targets. particularly in relation to the building sector, and we realised that the industry was systematically underestimating the energy and emissions reductions made possible by the demand reduction approach. We also recognised that buildings were, for various reasons, not performing as designed or as predicted in relation to their energy use and related emissions. We felt the industry also lacked sufficiently robust energy and CO2 standards. Assessment tools were a problem, and compliance regimes were also causing issues. Now, the industry relied on compliance software that wasn't sufficiently developed for accurately assessing extremely low energy buildings, or wasn't being used in an appropriate way for designing effective and particularly cost-effective low energy buildings. The AECB next defined unambiguous energy and CO2 targets and set them in the context of what we felt was a realistic new build versus low energy refurbishment scenario, and we proposed that a phased adoption of these standards at 2050 could deliver a 90% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions from the building stock.
With regards to kind of delivering these high reductions in carbon emissions, I seem to remember initially there were quite a few more energy standards than there are now. I think at the moment there are about 3 main energy standards, whereas there used to be a couple more. Could you kind of explain how and why that they've been whittled down, or the process by which we've arrived at the 3 standards that are now current?
Yes, well, initially several levels were developed. We called them AECB Bronze, Silver, Gold and Platinum. And lobbying for adoption of these standards formed the basis of the AECB Energy Campaign. As the situation with climate change became ever clearer, and as we did further research, we decided we actually needed fewer individual steps towards low energy building. Also at the same time, we were concerned about a proliferation of competing standards, which was confusing the industry, and we attempted to harmonise our standards with the Energy Saving Trust's best practice programme standards. Over an 18-month period, discussions and meetings between AECB, BRE and EST indicated that the underlying principles and methodologies held dear by the mainstream industry were leading to buildings that consistently did not perform as intended. Those negotiations to harmonise found that because we were not talking the same language, we very clearly wanted to close the design reality gap through more rigorous and robust methods than were available at the time. The AECB then continued to argue its preferred approach with other progressive partners, and through demonstration and monitoring, built examples, we showed how this approach could produce more reliably low energy and low emission buildings. As the AECB Energy Campaign progressed, AECB members took up the call and started using our voluntary standards, aiming for the energy and CO2 targets in their own projects. At one point, a quick survey we did suggested that 1% of UK new build projects measured by floor area were aiming for the AECB Silver or Gold energy standards, which was a pretty good one.
Judging by that survey, it seems there's a clear kind of interest and even uptake of the energy standards. Did that help issue with funding at all?
Yes, it did. The Carbon Trust Network programme subsequently funded the AECB to develop its work into an education and training programme, which we called the Carbon Literate Design and Construction Programme, or Carbonite. The way AECB members rallied around the AECB standards and used them to inform their building projects was one of the main reasons, I think, that we got that funding.